Hey everyone, I feel like doing a little bit of a rant, not so much of like actual rant, but just talking. I see a lot of people have these specialized bearing blocks that they keep with them, even go to the extremes of putting special bearing blocks into their knives or into their shoes or another object that they're always going to have on them. Now, for those of you who don't know what I'm on about, I'm talking about bearing block for bow drill or any other type of fire by friction. The block that you hold onto, or the object that you hold onto, and apply downward pressure onto the spindle. Now, I like the idea of specialized bearing blocks, such as you get some people using an actual bearing so it can spin freely, or they'll have like an egg cup or a seashell or something like that. And I can see the value of this as a training aid, because after going from using that to carving one out of wood, it is quite a bit trickier to have to carve it out yourself. It can add quite a bit of time to the actual practice. You gotta get that socket in the bearing block right and get it moving and getting it spinning with very little friction and not popping out. So I noticed that when I have to carve a new bearing block, it does seem to add quite a bit of time to the process of building an entire new kit. It's much easier to just have to make the spindle and the baseboard. But I kind of think of those pre-made ones, especially the more modern ones, such as some kind of steel cup or an egg cup or a bearing or a spoon or something like that. I kind of think of them as kind of like learning to drive an automatic. You could be in for a bit of a shock if you ever get forced to drive a manual. If you kind of get to what I'm saying. It's a lot easier to use those pre-made or idyllic bearing blocks. They make it a lot easier. This could lull you into a false sense of ability. Now, if you want to practice and just have a bit of fun and test different type of woods to see if they work, then that's one thing. But if you're trying to develop skills in case you ever had to rely on them, I would suggest that you learn to make a bearing block out of wood or carve one yourself. I've just been using wood, and I've even been using softwoods. I've even used the same wood on the half board as I have for the bearing block, and you know what? Yeah, it'll wear down, but as long as you keep that stuff full of green leaves to get that kind of a cellulose mash in there, it doesn't burn too badly, especially if you've got a very fine point at the top. So it can be done with the softwood. That's just giving you more options, and to be able to get it done with less of dependence on having specialized equipment such as a spoon or an egg cup or the right kind of seashell. I know it irritates some people to see people constantly using special bearings built into knives and stuff. You know what? I'm more open to it. To a lot of people in bushcraft is recreational, so they're having a bit of fun. What's wrong with that? I don't really have a problem with people doing that. And some people might argue that, well, if I've got that bit of a spoon or a bearing built into my survival knife, then that's the knife that I'm going to have with me. So it doesn't matter that I can't carve one out of wood, because I'll always have it in the knife that I'm taking out with me. Yes, but that is assuming that you have that survival knife with you.
Of course I'm gonna have a survival knife in a survival situation. That's what makes it a survival knife. Duh!
I'm not saying that you won't necessarily have your favorite survival knife with you, but I would encourage you to still try and learn to get a fire by friction going without that special spindle, just so that, just in case. If you're just trying to have fun and learn some skills, rock on. And you've learnt how to make 5 by friction using that bearing, that pre-made really good bearing. So I would encourage you to just go that little bit further, and by little bit further I mean it can be a real pain learning it, but you know, I would encourage people just to go that bit further to learn how to create their own bearings out in the bush primitively. Just a little encouragement. And a tip, when you carve out your own bearing block, it really helps to get some really green leaves, mash them up inside of the socket so that, you know, gets that pulp of cellulose and water. You know, it helps to lubricate the spindle, and it really does make a difference. Just a little tip, because I'm hoping some of you will actually, after watching this, possibly go out and have a go at trying to carve your own bearing block. And if you do, I would love to see a video response. Alright everyone, hope you have a good one. See you.